that, we'll do a quick review of the agenda for this evening. We're going to go over our legislative work. We'll review our state lobbying with Doug. We'll look at our proposed priority projects and have a dialogue with you about those. And then we're seeking your recommendations for our 2026 legislative focus, as well as guidance on how you want to receive updates from this work. So to set the stage, we have been following a set of best practices. As I shared with you in the staff report, this is a list that has been vetted by elected officials. We've sought guidance from experts in the area to develop a best practice approach for this legislative work. And with that, we have felt that this is a year-round process. So we meet bi-weekly, led by the mayor, Council President Peralta. We have the city manager and now the interim city manager, and a variety of different department heads participate as well, as Doug joins all of those meetings. And on occasion, we invite our elected officials, Representative Elmer, Senator Starr, and their staff to meet with us to make sure that we're using the most current intel, that we're keeping ourselves apprised of the critical aspects of what's happening at the legislature. At the same time, we're also meeting on through the mayor's office. We meet with our federal delegation to make sure that we're aligning our requests and seeking the opportunities on the federal side as well. The list that you have before you that was presented in the staff report, that list is ever evolving. It's been the foundation of our work since 2022. The list hasn't changed much. We may have added more information. We may have reprioritized projects based on their readiness. We also review that list through the MacTown 2032 goals that were adopted. We always look at the city council's annual goals, those goals, 4 or 5 items that you've prioritized for the year. We've also added this year another filter to look through, and that's through the McMinnville Vitality Economic Leadership Council. They have a set of priorities that they're also working through. And we feel it's important that we also look at the strategic goals of McMinnville Water and Light. We also work with council leadership, the mayor, council president, and the executive leadership at the city. So those are your directors of your departments. They've also reviewed the list and given insight and some additions to the list as well. We also need to have a deep understanding of the legislative and legislators' priorities. We want to make sure that our projects are aligned with their priorities as well. They carry our projects forward, so we want to make sure that they that we have projects that are ready for them and prioritize with them. The most important thing about all of this work is that we have to understand it's in an environment of flexibility, and we're preparing for opportunity. So we as staff are here to support you as you look through the list, but we do not want you to look through the list as only 1 or 2 items. We really need you to take a look at the list as a holistic approach, because we never know when an opportunity might arise as we're meeting with elected officials, or if something happens in the legislature and there's a bill that we could nestle one of our projects into. We want to make sure that we're continually ready for those opportunities. I will also share that there have been times when the mayor has hosted a delegation, or a federal delegation, and in that conversation, there have been connections with projects. I think the Habitat for Humanity project was one of those where, like, Senator Merkley has an affinity with Habitat. We have a Habitat project. Let's make sure we can line those things up. So one of the things that is really important about our work is it's about relationships. It's about continually working with our legislators and our elected officials here locally to build the relationship. We want to know their cell phone number. That's the bottom line. So that if something comes up, we have that knowledge of how to get a hold of them, but they also know us and our community and and the priorities that we have here. Another way is that we really need to be good at communication. We have to be able to tell the story of the project. We are ready to deliver if we get the money. That's the bottom line. We want to make sure that they know if they carry that project forward, it ends up in a bill, it's signed, we get the money, we can deliver. There's a ribbon cutting, there's a photo op, that this is a community that you know you can invest in because we know how to make our projects work. The other piece of it is that this is important, and I'm showing the deadlines here for legislative work for this year in particular. The way that you should look at this list is these deadlines. It's the same list that we're working with, the priority projects, on both the federal and the state side, but we have a variety of different types of milestones that we have to achieve. So normally, during this process, we're in review June, July, August on our projects, and we're meeting with elected officials in September. We're starting to craft our messaging based on those conversations, and then we really hit the ground running. You really have to have your projects pretty much fully baked by September, October, because that's when things start to really roll on the legislative side. Whether it's a short session or a long session, you really have to have those projects ready to go and be able to provide the type of detail that the legislator is going to want. So with that, I'm going to let Doug give us a review of the work that he does with us. So hopefully I can be a good partner here.
Great. Sure, the microphone's on. Thanks, everyone. Doug Riggs on behalf of all of you and the city of McMinnville. It's been a delight to work with the city over the last 3.5 years, going into year 4, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight. And I just start out by saying I agree with 100% of what Jody said. The process and the relationships, I think, are the most important things in this work. And I would add to that the work done during the interim, so the time between the sessions, is really the most important. The planning in the interim, the preparation in the interim, the tours and the visits in the interim, the education of our legislators in the interim, all that hard work during that period of time between the sessions leads to success or failure in the session. So that's really important. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the first few slides, but I did want to provide it in your packet so you can go back to it. What you'll notice in this slide is we're just coming out of one of the most hectic, busy sessions of all time. And you can look at some of these numbers with the amount of testimony submitted, the number of people who testified in person, the number of bills on both the House and Senate side, the number of committee hearings. I mean, really, it's an amazing list of numbers that is up on this slide. And it illustrates the heavy lift that took place. Now, at the end of the day, it didn't end particularly well. In particular, the transportation bill was crashed and burned on the last day. Next slide. So we are in a process which is a little bit unusual in an interim, which is we are at a point where we have come out of a regular session and immediately been called back into a special session. And that special session, next slide, is all about transportation, as you well know. And what we've seen is that it's been kind of like watching a movie. This is Representative Warner Retschke, who sat in one of the hearings watching the proceedings, brought his bag of popcorn. I snapped the picture because I thought it was very appropriate, because it was like it was kind of like going to an action movie or a drama at the end of the session, and it did not end well. So next slide, Jody. You can actually go 2 slides down. So obviously, a couple weeks ago, we came into a special session on a Friday afternoon. The House had trouble getting a quorum. They came in at 11 o'clock, and by 8:41, they finally got the Republicans to agree to provide the quorum because they couldn't find enough Democrats to provide the quorum. They struggled all weekend. They got a bill passed out of the House, but then they could not get it passed out of the Senate because one of the Senate members was in the the hospital, and so that's where we are today, kind of in a holding pattern. These are the details about what's on the table right now. It raises about $15 billion over the length of the proposal, about $5.3 billion in the short term. It does that by increasing a variety of the fees, registration fees, gas tax, et cetera. It does do something that the League of Cities and Cities felt very strongly about, which is maintaining a 50-30-20 split, 50% for the state, 30 for counties, and 20% for cities. That was an important victory. And then it sunsets the payroll tax, and you can, for transit, you can actually take a look at the changes at the bottom. This slide that Jody's got us on now illustrates, the kind of vote that we had. We had basically a party line vote with one Republican, Cyrus Javity, voting yes, and he has since switched to be a Republican or a Democrat, and one Democrat voting no. There was lots of controversy about this. There was an article in the paper talking about, front page of the Oregonian, talking about the difficulties in the special session. The other difficulty that I mentioned is that the Senate vote was delayed because of Chris Gorsuch's health problems. For those of you who remember being in the Capitol last session, we met with Chris Gorsuch, great guy, out at Troutdale, had back surgery, had complications, is still in the hospital from what I understand. And I hope he is back. I hope his health is okay to be back on Monday. But there have been some cause and effect to all of this. As I mentioned, Representative Javity has switched parties. He's now a Democrat. It was 2 weeks ago he was a Republican. And then one of the Democrats who voted yes, Anessa Hartman, has decided to leave the legislature altogether after her term. So it really has been, kind of, as I mentioned, kind of like watching a movie with lots of drama. Ironically, in the transportation package, and this is something that's kind of unusual, even the opponents want this bill to pass. So the Republicans are united against the bill, but they would like it to pass. They think it's a valuable tool for them in the next elections. I predict that if it passes, and I expect it to pass if Senator Gorsuch is back, there will be an effort to refer to the ballot, which might delay implementation until after that ballot measure in November. So just slamming through these slides fairly quickly to show you that an awful lot is going on right now. So where are we right now? We are in a holding pattern until next Monday. So they've been gaveling in every 3 days to make sure they stay in session and meet the requirements of state law, which means that 2 members have to show up on the House floor and 2 members have to show up on the Senate floor, and one's in the with the gavel, and someone is there to not object. And they continue to be paid their per diem, although they're not actually in the building. Hopefully that ends on Monday and they decide one way or the other. But that will allow us to kind of move on to the next step of the process, which really gets to what we're talking about today, which is we are facing, as a state, some pretty significant challenges. The federal tax bill, which cut taxes on taxes for tips and taxes for overtime and depreciation schedules and business investment taxes. That reduces the amount of revenue that comes into the federal level, and because Oregon is tied to those tables, it also reduces the amount of money that the state would bring in from those various sources. And so the estimate is that over a biennium period of time, that's about $800 million in lost revenue. Now, I think some advocates of the tax plan would say that will generate economic growth, that will generate more investment, that will generate more economic revenue over time. We can have that debate and argue about that outside of this room. But in the short term, it will lead to a reduction in taxes. So one of the things that's being considered is disconnecting from the federal tax cuts. Oregon is actually one of only 5 states in the country that remains connected at all times to the federal tax code. So it would put us in the same position of most other states not being automatically connected. They also might decide to disconnect from portions of the federal tax cuts, but not others. So they could decide to disconnect from the depreciation schedules, the business investment tax cuts, but not disconnect from the taxes on tips or the taxes on overtime. So stay tuned. So what does that mean for us here today? Well, the amount of revenue the state has helps determine what kind of likelihood we'll have for success going and asking for funding for a project or projects in Salem. So lots of things to discuss. And now focus, I think, with my last 2 slides on really what's important. So from a McMinnville standpoint, first of all, I'd like to compliment the staff and the council over the last couple of years. We've been very successful in Salem and at federal government, securing funding, which is going to go someplace. Someone is going to get that funding, and we've been able to bring some of it here to McMinnville. And we've done that by setting clear priorities. As Jody mentioned, working with our legislators, that's really important, lining up our priorities with their priorities, and also coordinating with our allies. And our allies include the Association of Oregon, League of Oregon Cities, Association of Oregon Counties. It includes business interests. It includes local advocates. Last session it was the home builders that we worked with, and we worked across the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats. So that's really the kind of the overall goal that we have, is to coordinate with those entities and those groups. And then digging a little more deeply, I was trying to think, what should I share with the council as far as what are the most important things as we go down to Salem? And for those of you who've been there, I think you've heard me say this before. I'll be a little bit like a broken record. I think number one is kind of recognize the realities of what is going on in Salem. So be reasonable about the amount of what you're requesting, the number of projects you're requesting. When at the heyday 2 or 3 years ago, when you had page after page after page of projects being funded, much of that was being funded with federal money that had come into the state through ARPA. And the state had excess ARPA money, and so they decided to allocate it for a number of projects. That money is gone at this point. But there are still going to be opportunities. People tend to continue to play video poker and play video lottery games and generate money for lottery bonding projects, and that money is best when it's invested in projects that improve situations for community members, put people to work, create economic development. So there will continue to be opportunities. Second point I'd make is that every session in the legislature, you can kind of predict where the legislature is going as far as what are their priorities going to be. So for instance, a couple of years ago, the governor had set behavioral health as a priority. The last couple sessions it's been housing. So there's an opportunity to say, are there projects that we have that line up with what the legislature, and in particular the governor and the Ways and Means Committee chairs, want to invest in? And that improves your chances of getting funded. The other thing is that we can look at what has happened in the past for what has succeeded through the legislative process and what has not succeeded. So what are the most likely things to be funded this year? You might go back to the last session or the session before, and you can judge that. I've mentioned this, but work through your local legislators. As Jody mentioned, they will be carrying our water for us. We obviously will make the request, but Ways and Means Committee members and leadership are going to look to Representative Elmer, Senator Starr, and other legislators in the area to say, what do you think of McMinnville's request, and is it your priority? In the case of something that requires a policy change, then we actually have to get them to introduce a bill. So we can always put in a fiscal request without their support, but to put in something that requires a policy change requires their active support. The other thing is often requests are not just a single session type of request. It's sometimes you kind of get in line and there are more requests every session that they're able to fund. And so often at the beginning of a session, they'll say, well, we didn't quite get to these 7 or 8 projects, so we're going to fund those first. That might mean that we might be in that category. It might take a year or 2 years of education and outreach to be able to get through it. So patience is a virtue. And then I'll close with what I started with, which is the interim really is the key. And you guys are getting an early start, both for 2026, but also if we're thinking long-term for 2027. And as I said, the work done in the interim is really the key to success during the session. So I think I'll stop there and take any questions you might have.
Any councilors have questions for Mr. Riggs? Councilor Peralta?
Yeah, thank you, Doug, and I really appreciate your work and the success in getting significant funds to help with the water infrastructure in the last legislative session, and also the work to kind of set the table for future projects. I was looking through, I heard your comment that ARPA dollars have all been spent. And I'm wondering, Jody, can you check in with Business Oregon to see if they have any flexibility in the ARPA dollars that they've been allocated, but they might not have spent yet?
So that's a very timely recommendation, and I will do that on your behalf. There's a set of ARPA projects that will close out December 31st, 2025, with the idea that if there's any remaining money, it must be spent by the end of 2026. So I'll check in on that. I'm not aware of any other mechanism. Those are the Senate and representative projects.
Yeah, Counselor and Mayor, the bulk of the ARPA dollars went either to Business Oregon or the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department, OHCS. And Business Oregon has been a little quicker about getting money out the door than has OHCS. In fact, OHCS is notoriously slow about making sure the money gets out the door. So there are, I believe, some pots of money that were established in 2024 that OHCS is still in the process of RFPing. I don't know if that would be categorized as unspent money, but it has not yet been allocated in 100% of the time.
Depending on the type of money, it might be required, they would have had to allocate it. I won't speak on behalf of the state, but there's a lot of ARPA money that has different regulations around it, so I'm not sure unallocated money for an agency, how that would play out.
But you have the gist of the request, whether we're talking about Business Oregon or housing, if we
Yes.
can find out if the money that they've received but not spent, if that's something that we can try and get into. Hopefully other people aren't thinking about it just yet, so. Then the second question that I had was related to the lottery dollar projects. Now, my recollection is lottery is restricted, and I thought that it was primarily restricted to parks and rec development, recreational development, but I know that they also have money for local government grants, so how do you feel about, in the short session, trying to pursue, rather than trying to pursue out of the general fund, trying to pursue out of different funds that might not be as impacted by the, the federal changes and the shortfalls of the state general fund?
Yeah, Counselor, good question, and you're correct that in statute, the voters have decided that portions of the lottery funding go to things like education, CTE and STEM funding, parks and rec, and economic development. There is also a portion of the funding that goes through the legislature to be able to allocate, and that is the portion that we typically focus on, and that's a smaller portion than those kind of automatic allocations. For instance, there is no way for the legislature to impact the money that goes to Business Oregon for economic development, but Business Oregon might run a program that you could apply for. For housing infrastructure, the legislature has tagged onto that discretionary portion of the lottery funding and allocated that for things like the LIFT program, which is the large-scale housing development funding for multifamily housing for the most part. And the legislature has allocated money towards specific projects, which is how the city got the $2 million the last time. But you're correct that they're kind of a variety of pots, and some of them are available for cities to apply for, and some of them are automatically allocated towards certain things.
Counselor Chenoweth, sorry, I think I'm going to sneeze.
I'm chasing a rabbit now, because when Councilor Peralta asked that, I looked it up to see what those dollars are allocated to. Not having done that before, I wasn't aware. It says almost 26% of lottery funds are allocated for job creation and economic growth. Is that money specifically allocated, or is that money we could be applying for some of the priorities we have in our list?
I believe some of that money goes to Business Oregon specifically for economic development, and that might be where they have programs that they can put money into a recruitment. I believe the lottery funds cover that. My understanding, when you look at what we refer to often is the end of the bill session, or the bill at the end of the session is often referred to as the Christmas tree bill. So you hang a lot of projects on the tree. Some of those projects might be categorized, if I'm not mistaken, as a video lottery. They're lottery bonded projects in that. So there's a specific set of projects that fit that criteria. When we apply for a project, we work with our legislator on what box we're going to check. So we have the opportunity to check a lottery bond or a general fund. Depending on the type of project, we have the ability to look at that. Now, that's our submission for our project in a paper form, and then it goes through the Legislative Finance Office, the LFO, and they'll determine if our project fits those particular funding models.
Also, I'll add to the intrigue or the complication in this in that there are two types of bonding authority. One is lottery bonding, and the other is Q bonds. And Q bonds, which some of which comes out of lottery revenue, can only be used for state-owned projects. So there is some bonding authority that the state issues, that the legislature approves, that is off limits for a city or a county or another entity that's not the state.
So simplifying this down for my brain, what I'm hearing you say is when we go to them with a legislative ask, the legislators that we're working with will let us know if it fits into this pool, and if so, they would aim it that way. And we don't need to worry about that too much at this juncture. Okay.
I would say the advice that I would give you is focus on the projects that are critical for you, and we'll work with the legislators on what types of funds we may be asking for.
Okay, thank
I
you.
would also share with you that projects, this is a legislative discussion, but there are other programmatic dollars or other resources that we can bring to bear on the project. This is one aspect of bringing funds into the community to be able to move the needle on critical infrastructure or other. This is just one source of revenue for that.
Councilor Peralta?
On that point, and really just for folks on the dais and in the community, essentially what you're saying is we have programs that we can apply for as a city, that any city can apply for, that meet certain criteria for projects. But the point of these legislative asks are specific to the city, a specific bill that we want for a funding project, not necessarily something that might be available to everybody through the normal course of how Business Oregon issues grants or something.
Yes, but the city of McMinnville often falls through the cracks when they apply for programmatic dollars. In some cases, we're too big, and in other cases, we're too small. So we're the middle of that. There's about 7 cities in the state of Oregon that fall into this category. And so this legislative effort is allowing us to bring in bigger dollars that would be available in maybe other ways, a programmatic dollar, but we don't compete well in those settings. So this allows us to reach to the legislature to help us move these projects forward. We're looking for a direct allocation. That does not mean we're not also assessing and determining where there might be programmatic dollars, grant dollars. We're still looking at those, but this is what this effort is focused on, is a direct allocation to the city for these projects.
And am I correct that the direct allocation also means that we generally get it quicker?
Yes, that's often the case, and that's what we've experienced, that the money, the $2 million came through Business Oregon. This is a state agency that is used to dealing with and having relationships with cities, so they're able to process money in a much more expedient way. They don't have to write a lot of rules and regulations. They already have existing systems that allow them to dispense with them, to disperse that money.
Councilor Peralta?
Thank you. Also, just for community kind of explication, so you mentioned that McMinnville, because of the size, we don't necessarily compete well with cities of other sizes. And is that because there's granting that's available through the, I think, is it the Main Street program, if you're 50,000 population and above, and then there's granting programs generally for cities that are 12,000 and below, and less for cities that fall into that mid-range of 12 to 50 or something? And the numbers might be slightly off, but that's the gist of it, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm unfamiliar with the Main Street program, and I see Heather has brought herself into focus here. This is a key aspect of that I'd like her to weigh in on.
Yeah, so Councilor Peralta, I think you're thinking about the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is an entitlement program for cities that are 50,000 or more. So they get an annual grant every year to dispense the way that they make local choices on how they dispense those funds. And we, because we're not 50,000, we don't. And then there's a lot of rural grant programs, the USDA rural funds and others that are available for cities that are either 35,000 and less or 25,000 and less. And as you know, we're just on the cusp of 35,000. So for those cities sitting between 25 and 50,000, oftentimes we're not even eligible to apply. And if we do apply, we're applying against larger cities like Portland, Salem, and Eugene, and can't bring the match to bear to be able to be competitive for the grants.
Thank you, Heather. Any additional questions right now? Councilor Gary?
Thank you. I heard you mention in one of your tips being reasonable about the amount of projects that are asked. How do you balance that with what we have a list of 22, 21, and the need to be flexible, as I heard you say? How do you balance those two things?
Counselor, I think that's an excellent question, and that's something I think the staff provides some input and guidance and prioritization, but it really, I think it gets back to what I said, which is, having a variety of projects and then sitting down with Rep. Elmer and Senator Starr gives them the ability to have some input as well. So, deciding internally what our priorities would be, and then also talking with our legislators, what they're comfortable in asking for, hopefully is a process that is designed to let 2 or 3 of those kind of rise to the top. And then, as Jody mentioned, there may be something that might be 4th or 5th down the list, but they might decide to do a bill on, a particular topic, and we have something that fits nicely in with that. So, and the other thing is, from a timing perspective, sometimes it takes multiple sessions to get something done. So something else ahead of those projects might fall off the list, and then in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th legislative session, that it might rise to the top. So it's never too early to start planning. We know we have more needs than there is available money, and that shouldn't mean that we don't discuss those needs or don't plan for those needs, but we do need to do some prioritization.
And I think, Counselor, what we try to do to support this work is to make sure that the projects are ready to go. And so you'll see some projects on the list, they're important projects, they're critical projects, but they're not quite ready for a legislative ask due to something that was discovered as we were starting to vet the project, or that it fell down on the list because the city doesn't have capacity to take on that project at this time. So there's the projects all are at sort of different phases of readiness. And so while there's a number of projects on the list, not all are ready to go for this session.
Yeah, Counselor, I'd echo that, which is one of the things that will get asked by the staff preparing the recommendations for legislators in the building is it construction ready? Is this ready to go? If we give you the funding, are you ready to break ground? And they really want within 2 years of allocating the funding for that money to be expended. So there may be projects that might be 3 or 4 years out, but in 2 years, they might be within that 2-year period of time.
So
Look like you're thinking.
with that, Mayor, if we could, we'd like to jump into the projects.
Sure.
So I did share with you in your staff report the list of projects. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to go through the projects, give you a little bit of opportunity to hear about the projects and ask your questions. We have both Jenny and Geoff, Heather, and myself are here to answer questions if you have technical. So stop and ask questions as we go. At the end of this process, we'll also be reviewing a potential policy that we would support. And then we'll spend some time with you to say, what are the priority projects that you want us to move forward? We as staff have recommendations, but of course, this is a work session to have you guide us through this process for our 26th session. So with that, okay. Just a reminder, as we look at projects, we're always looking for the right number to ask. So it's $1 million to $3 million. $3 million's a rarity. Anything under $1 million is highly competitive. Uneven numbers are very important in this as well. If the project has partial funding, that can be a match or in kind. We've determined that a lot of our projects fit the definition of phased. Let's get phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so we can go back for money. And that was a recommendation from our federal delegation, because they said if you've got success, let's keep making sure you can make it. And then shovel ready. So as Doug said, the funder wants to know that we can deliver the project in the time frame in which it needs to be delivered. So when you think about a project, think about it, is it ready to go in 12 months? You can turn dirt. You can do something in 12 months to spend the money. For state money, it's a fiscal, 2-year fiscal. So you'll get it in 1 year and you have to spend it by the end of the fiscal year. If you get it at a short session, you have a year. Now those can be extended by a few months or maybe even a year, but it's not a guarantee. So our goal is that we are constantly spending money in a way that gives certainty to the elected official that when you give McMinnville money, we're going to get the job done. So we want to make sure they're shovel ready. From a federal perspective, that's a bit of a different time frame. So they still want to know it's shovel ready in 12 to 18 months because it's going to take longer for you to get the money. There's a lot of negotiation when you get the money. Does it go through a state agency? Does it have federal requirements? So the horizon to spend the money could be 3 to 5 years plus. And it could even be longer. But you still want to prove to the elected official who's carrying your project that it is shovel ready. It's not in the pre-planning phase. It's actually in an adopted plan. It's being in the planning department. It's on someone's work plan that it's being worked. So that's very important. So for today, for this evening, we have our projects identified in 7 categories.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I thought you were.
I
do have a shovel-ready
wants to ask
follow-up.
another question.
Oh,
I
I'm
was just
sorry.
pausing.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Just while you were on the shovel ready, but I was able to hear you better when you leaned in.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of thinking 2-dimensionally, and it's a 3-dimensional answer, but on the shovel-ready thing, it talks about being, you had mentioned the 18 to 24-month timeline to start, and then 3 to 5 years for construction finish. How does shovel-ready qualify with asks that are tied to early phases of construction drawings? So, for example, I'll just use the 3rd Street improvement where we had one ask that's 30%, and then there's another ask where you get to 90% or whatever. I'm looking at you because I can't remember what that next development is. And then the last little bit, and then which sometimes gets skipped, and then it's just construction drawings, and then it seems like a longer period of that. How do you ensure shovel-ready on getting to 30% construction drawings? That's where I'm not, shovel-ready makes sense, but except if it doesn't lead to a project, or it leads to some of the projects we have on here seem like they're farther out than that.
Yeah. So, go ahead. Yes, thank you.
I'll say that.
Lean in.
Oops, got it from, there we go.
Thank you.
The legislature likes to see projects where the design is almost complete. In fact, I've been told numerous times when I've come in with a project, I said, we want money for design or engineering, and they'll say, nope, we want to build something. We want to actually build something tangible that we can see. Now, there are exceptions to that, but I think you have a better shot of success the further along your design and development is, and the less of the percentage of the project that you're asking for design and development out of state funds.
So in the case of the Third Street Improvement Project, the city was funding through 30%. So we were able to show our elected official that we're in the project, we're doing the work. And the funding that we received from Congresswoman Salinas through an appropriation is going to help us to get somewhere between 60 and 100% design and engineering. So the next phase is construction. So the project was well on its way by the time the additional funding came in to help us get further down the road on that.
And so how do you look at that funded project's 3 to 5 year completion window of getting it to 30% in that 3 to 5 years, or building the project that it's leading to in 3 to 5 years?
If I could for just a minute, I think I understand where Councilor Geary's coming from. What we learned was there's a distinction between the state ask and the federal ask. And when we brought Third Street Improvement into the state for a request for funds initially, when we were looking for the 30% and then to the full construction documents, and they didn't want to fund the design piece of it. That same year, we were talking to our federal delegation, and they started talking to us about break this into phases. We want to fund the completion of a phase, and we want to fund the completion of a phase that we know this project is moving forward. So we then went to the federal delegation and said, we need $850 to get us to final construction docs. We're committed to get to 30. We then need to get to 100% construction docs. And for the federal legislators, they were comfortable with that and submitted it for that purpose. The state was not comfortable with that request for the construction piece. And I would say that for our phase discussion of projects, we really have seen more interest and reception of talking about projects in phases, especially the larger ones that aren't getting to a built product at the end immediately with the funds that we're asking for from the federal side than we have from the state side.
So the shovel-ready is a helpful criteria, not always applicable, hence flexibility.
Yeah, and when you think about the federal piece of it, I would think of shovel-ready as that's more of an analogy as to, are you going to complete what you said you were going to do for this phase of the project?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, the projects are in categories. We have 7 categories. The next few slides, I'm going to review each of the projects in those categories. Again, we have the directors here who can answer specific questions, but the goal is to have you review these, determine if there's a focus area or if you like the recommended projects that we have to move forward, or if we're missing something. So with that, the Northeast Gateway projects, the highlighted project is a project that we've taken to the legislature, and I think for 3 years now we've been talking about this project. We had specific asks over the last couple of years. It's getting traction. So this is the phase 2, the next 4 blocks of Alpine Avenue. It's really hitting on the housing and economic development of the area. And I think the mayor's been in conversations, and I heard today Councilor Peralta also, this project resonates with elected officials, not only in our district, but other districts as well. The other 2 projects, the Northwest Rubber Site redevelopment, that's in progress. So that's on the list because it's a critical aspect to this area, and we want to make sure that we're talking about the redevelopment when we're talking about Alpine Avenue, and there may be an ask in the future. And then, of course, the wastewater and stormwater upgrade project. That's going to be a critical component to this district as well. The next one is the 3 Mile Lane area projects. This is tied.
Excuse me, Jody, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Councilor Peralta has a
Hi,
question.
Jody, just a process question. Would you like us to sort of weigh in on the projects as you go through each of these areas, or do you want something at the end after you've presented them all?
If we can be pithy, we have several projects to talk about. So If there's something that you want to comment about these projects, I think that would be fine. I would ask if there's a lot of dialogue that we move that to the end.
Okay, thank
Counselor Chenoweth?
I'm going to try to be pithy. I'm not good at that. On the slides, I notice you have something in yellow and the other two
Yes.
are not, like this first one. I assume that means the staff has already determined of this batch, this is the one that is probably the one that's going to get the most traction at this time.
I'm simply highlighting the project that we've been moving forward for the last couple of years. The other two have not been associated with a legislative ask. This project has been.
Okay, so it's
I wanted to
not
highlight
a
that.
recommendation, it is just acknowledging this is what we've worked on.
Yes, that this is a project that has history and that we've built relationships and there's a recognition for the project. The next area is 3 Mile Lane area project. There are two. The Innovation Campus, McMinnville Landing. This is a project that we're currently working through the master plan process. And so it's on the list because there will likely be an ask in the future. We've built some recognition through our visits with legislators, so that project is there. It's a pivotal project for the city. It's a transformative project, and we feel like as one of the largest industrial sites in the state of Oregon, people's ears perk up when they hear that. To support that, the Highway 18 frontage streets, this is an improvement. We've noted it as phase one. It's design a critical connector that will help serve the Innovation Campus site, and that project has been, we've had a legislative ask for that as well. We have some transportation safety and accessibility projects, the Booth Bend Railroad pedestrian crossing improvement, and the low to moderate income neighborhood sidewalk accessibility phase one. Obviously, the one that's highlighted is one that we've been talking both at the federal level and at the state level. These are sidewalks that are not, that the community members are not able to use them at all. The trees have buckled the sidewalks are deteriorated in a way you could not walk, you could not have, if you used a mobility device, they are unusable. And so this project has also resonated with elected officials. We've not yet brought the money home. The Booth Bend Road pedestrian crossing has some additional complexities to it that we would probably bring at a future time to the council to review what that might look like, that solution. The next one are housing projects. So as I mentioned, these are highlighted in blue because the city was not the applicant, but we supported our partners. So these were federal asks, so it was the first time both organizations had gone through that process. We coached and mentored them through that. One is for a rehabilitation for housing that's currently oversubscribed. So we have so many residents that could participate in this program, but we don't have enough funding. The second one is affordable housing project with Habitat. Both of these resonated with our federal delegation. They were very interested, particularly the Habitat project with its connection to Senator Merkley. We do know, Mayor, I believe you've heard, the first one is in queue on.
It's in there, but we aren't quite, we can't say 100% we've got it because they have not completed their process. But they have until September 30th.
So fingers crossed. That would be an incredible investment in this community and could take care of quite a few of our community members. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a signalized intersection at Michael Book and Baker Creek. There needs to be more work done on that project to understand the scope of that. 3rd Street improvement. We've always had this project on the list. We've added it and massaged it a little bit. So here you see the next phase, phase E. That's taking us 30% to 100% design and engineering. Phase F, the last one on the list, is construction. So we thought it was important to call those two out. And then the middle program is something that the city will be working on to support our businesses during during, and post-construction. So we want to build a program that helps them survive difficult construction. So we're working on that. Community parks and recreation. So we've always had the Recreation and Aquatic Center on the list, but in talking with Jenny, we said, is there a way that we can break this up into smaller bites? So it's not just one ask that may have multiple things in it. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about our thought process here. No? So the idea was that the Recreation and Aquatic Center in Phase 1 is the design and engineering. Phase 2 would be construction. That would be true of the expansion and rehabilitation for the library. There's a Phase 1 and a Phase 2. For the senior center, we're going to have a Phase 1 and a Phase 2, and then park improvements. So it's really taking a look at the variety of aspects that need to occur to take care of all of these needs. As Heather mentioned earlier, when you phase a project, it's a little bit easier to then go for an ask. It's a little bit more, the bite size is a little smaller. And so that's what we've done here, which I think is going to be a really strong strategy to be able to put a package forward in the next long session, short session, long session. So kind of thinking forward to 27. The last one is new with the community center, or community recreation and aquatic center. There would be a need to repurpose the vacated community center. So this is a placeholder for a potential project in the future. We also have not only the projects, but we also look at policies. So how can the city position itself?
Can I just ask about the last one?
Sure.
I know it's just a placeholder, but we as a council haven't decided what's gonna happen there. So to see it on there, I just was a little surprised.
So the idea is that there haven't been any discussions about it, but as we started to talk about the vacating that facility, the idea was to give the council an opportunity to say, okay, what would we do with that facility? And so if you put it on a project, there might be an opportunity to do a feasibility analysis. There might be a program that we could bring to bear when the time is right to have that discussion.
Okay.
It would not be staff-led, it would be council-led.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to clarify how it got there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, I was going to move on to a brief policy discussion. Are you comfortable with moving on to that? This is going to be led by Heather. So.
Right. So the last piece of this is we've been asked, the city of McMinnville has been asked by the chair of the housing committee if we support an inclusionary zoning bill that she wants to sponsor through her committee this next short session. Inclusionary zoning is a bill that the city of McMinnville has tried twice with Representative Noble to get passed through the state. So there's awareness that the city of McMinnville has been interested in this in the past. In this, we've adopted it as part of our Affordable Housing Committee work plan on 3 separate occasions with the city council. Before moving forward and saying that the city is supportive of this effort, we wanted to make sure we had this discussion with you. Inclusionary zoning, just to remind you briefly what it is, it's a state law that allows cities to decide if they want to enact an ordinance that requires a certain percentage, 20% of housing in a housing project to be affordable housing. And currently the state law limits it to just structures of 20 units or more, which here in McMinnville is not built in the market. The only structures we have of 20 units or more that I can think of are all affordable housing projects. So the market's not building that. We have apartment projects of several structures that are usually 12 units. So we have historically said we can't participate in your existing inclusionary zoning criteria. We'd like to see it lowered so that the city can consider it for housing here in McMinnville. And that would be the interest in the chair's bill that she wants to put forward from the housing committee, which would be to lower the standard to a structure of 12 units or more so that other cities can participate. There's a lot more details in there, but they have requested, they've reached out to Doug and I to see if the city of McMinnville would support that publicly in testimony and in at hearings, and I wanted to bring this to you so you could have that discussion.
Do any counselors have any comments right off the top? Okay.
I'm not even really clear what exactly she's saying at this point.
So if I'm correct, Heather, well, actually, why don't I let you explain it a little bit more layman terms besides me explaining it?
Okay. What it means is it changes the state law right now that allows cities to say, we would like to adopt an ordinance that requires inclusionary zoning and housing projects. And so the law doesn't say cities must do this. The law says cities can now explore and evaluate whether they want to do this. And if a city wants to do it, they then adopt a local ordinance to do so. But what it means is when you say inclusionary zoning, it's saying that housing projects of a certain type are, if you adopt this local ordinance, are required to provide X number of units of that housing type as affordable housing units. Right now, the state law is written as 80% AMI or more. So it's not 80% AMI or less, which is kind of weird and awkward, but that's the way it reads. So cities can decide that the inclusionary zoning is 80 to 120% AMI, which here in McMinnville is also still subsidized, but is workforce housing for us. And so the reason we can't even have the discussion of whether we want to adopt a local ordinance to bring this into McMinnville is it just doesn't make sense because we don't have any projects built like what the state law says is a qualifying project right now, which is a structure with 20 units in it. So we asked, can it be lowered to a structure with 12 units in it, which is still apartments here in McMinnville, but it's, it's what's built here. And we presented that twice through the legislature, I think 2017 and 2019, maybe with Representative Noble. And so that's known. And so the Senator Phom's office, who is the chair of the Housing Committee, is interested in moving this forward so that other cities can participate. McMinnville's not the only city that doesn't have structures of 20 units or more. And then once the state law is changed as to what that qualifying project is considered, then you have a local discussion and evaluation of, do I want to do this or not? So it doesn't say, and even testifying it wouldn't say, McMinnville's going to do this. We've always said, McMinnville wants to explore whether this makes sense for us in terms of being able to bring more affordable housing online in our community. Did that help?
Councilor Cunningham? Nothing? Oh, okay. Councilor Peralta?
So I have a couple of comments on it. The idea for expanding inclusionary zoning to include more property types was something that originated here in McMinnville from our affordable housing task force. So it's really rewarding, I think, that the legislature is still considering this even after we have not been pushing it at least the last couple of sessions. One concern that I have, having been involved in the original drafting of it, is that kind of the devil's in the details on these policies, and we don't necessarily have a lot of control over the policies that they ultimately adopt. And subsequently, in the last legislative session, the League of Oregon Cities even weighed in against this particular bill. So I'm a little hesitant about having our city put resources into this, even though I'm a supporter of the concept of just giving them giving cities the opportunity, rural cities the opportunity to add this as a tool for affordable housing, but it puts us in a difficult position where there's not a lot of other champions besides the housing chair, and so I'm a little uncomfortable for that reason.
Thank you. Councilor Tukalski.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I had a question about if it's inclusionary zoned, does that mean the city is subsidizing this, or is the federal government subsidizing it if we're building market rate and also affordable housing? Who's paying for this?
So that's a great question, Counselor, and that's the devil in the details discussion. So when it was first adopted by the state, which I think it happened in 2015 or something like that, that same legislation enabled the construction excise tax for affordable housing. And the intention was that that collection of funds would help develop programs that would subsidize these projects. But it wasn't a requirement. And there were proponents of inclusionary zoning that felt that the profit from the market rate housing should subsidize the affordable housing. Portland rolled this out and didn't have a requirement that the developers be backfilled for the subsidy for the affordable housing, and it didn't work very well. There were many developers that just built 19 units, right, to get out underneath it. Portland then evaluated their program and amended it to use their construction excise tax funds and other funding sources. They have other affordable housing funding sources to put together a calculation on how to backfill the developer for the subsidy for the affordable housing units. And the bill that's being considered for this short session has that same sort of philosophy behind it, that the affordable housing units will be subsidized by an affordable housing funding program at the city. We do have a construction excise tax here in McMinnville that we could utilize in that method.
So if we do have the construction excise tax, are we collecting that? And if so, how much do we have in that account?
We are collecting that, and actually it's developers paying for it. So we're collected on building permits right now. And we currently have, I would say, I think forecasted through the end of this fiscal year, we are forecasting about $1.2 or $3 million in there for programs. We've been collecting it for 3 years now, and we wanted to create a fund that had enough leverage to actually make meaningful impact. Now, there's discussion of leveraging that for so the priority for that is to create more units, more affordable housing units in McMinnville. There's also discussion of leveraging it to support programs as well, and that will be coming to you as City Council here in the near future. The Affordable Housing Committee has been working on that.
So my concern is I don't like anything that says required for somebody's private property. So if there's a developer that wants to build some housing of 12 units and that we're going to require that a portion of that be affordable housing, I'm just not comfortable with that. I think that we have the excise funds that we can help. We also already waive SDCs. So we have some components to help with affordable housing that putting ourselves in a place where we're requiring it isn't what I'm comfortable with at this point. Councilor Chenoweth.
I'm confused. What I hear you saying is this inclusionary zoning is going to allow us to use funds for affordable housing that we can already use for affordable housing.
Yeah, so no, that's not it. So the program funds is not the piece of inclusionary zoning that we're talking about now. That was originally enabled with the first legislation for inclusionary zoning, the one that created that 20 units per structure. They then created the construction excise tax program to help fund it. But cities could do the construction excise tax without inclusionary zoning. And so McMinnville did choose to do that. And so that's in play today. The inclusionary zoning is regulatory, so it's what the mayor just described. It is the city adopting an ordinance that does require housing projects of a certain type to set aside X percent, it's 20% in the state legislation today, 20% of housing units for affordable housing, and we can define what is affordable housing, what's the criteria for that. But it's a regulatory mechanism, so it's a requirement. It's not the funding piece of it.
Given that, I would be in the same position as Sal and, Council President Peralta and Mayor Morrison, feeling a little uncomfortable with moving forward in support of this.
Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, Director Richards, if we're collecting a construction excise tax and the individual who's building this on private property is required to do so, the affordable housing units are obviously more affordable, but that reduces I would say, the margin that the developer is making. So in our effort to create affordable housing, that margin reduction is actually going to be passed on to the other homes that are not affordable, and therefore those home prices will rise because they have to maintain some kind of a margin in there. So
And that has been one of the arguments. The Portland model actually calculates in that piece too. It's a fairly complicated financial calculation.
But how does that fit with our affordable housing goal if we're driving up home prices with a subsidy that is inclusionary?
Yeah, and that's one of the arguments against it. One of the arguments for it is, what we're seeing today, which is we don't see housing built that's really serving the 80 to 120% AMI market because it's not getting enough incentives from the state to build. State incentives are for 80% and below, so those are the affordable housing projects you see that are just there. And then the market's not building at that level because there's more margin in the higher end housing market.
Okay, so it sounds, we can't make decisions here in a work session, but it doesn't sound like there is enough of a support to kind of ask you to research that at this time. I
think what we could do, Mayor, is take the council direction. In previous years, that legislative group has sort of helped advise how we've moved forward on policy, testimony, and stuff like that. So clearly we have council consideration and direction on this particular piece that we can use.
You have council consideration on that we have chosen not to move it forward? Or what are you saying, Heather?
So what we want is the pulse of the council as we discuss this as that legislative group,
right?
For policy. So I think we've gotten the pulse of the council.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood. It was a lot of words to get to there.
Sorry.
So thank you, Heather. So Jody, are we going to finish up
let's
on this
run.
part?
So here we go. So we're looking for a recommendation or direction from the council on the projects for 26. So this would be the work that we would be doing both on the state and the federal side, the projects that we'd like to be working, and then consider the list, an opportunity list. So if there's something that comes up, and any other considerations. So the recommendation from staff and from the legislative group is that we continue to work the Alpine project, the Highway 18 frontage streets, the low to moderate income sidewalk accessibility phase 1. We continue to support our two partners. Hopefully there's a 1 million or there's a funding coming in for the rehab, but if not, to continue to support them as well as the habitat. Now, this is this recommendation is based on the fact that we've gone before the legislature several times and we've had conversations. They know the projects. I will say that of all the projects on the list, Alpine seems to resonate over and over again with our elected officials. But so this is the first part of the list. The second part includes the 3rd Street improvement, the community parks, and the public facilities. So with this, you'll see that there are no recommendations from staff because of the project readiness. So we're obviously with Third Street, we're in process on Phase E. We're working on the resiliency program, and we're not ready to ask for any funding for the state legislature on construction. And then the parks and the community parks and recreation, those projects are, we feel they're primed for the long session, so in 2027. And then obviously the repurposing is a longer discussion that we have to have. So that's the list, and we'd like to hear from you if those work well for you for this next year, if there's something that you'd like us to be thinking differently about, if there are projects that we've missed the mark on, or that may be missing from.
Can you put your highlighted list back, go back one slide, so it's on the screen? There we go. Okay, counselors, do you want any comments?
Yep.
Counselor Cunningham?
Yeah, I would generally agree with the assessment of staff on these. And I would say that Alpine Phase 2 has the potential to unlock that neighborhood. And so, of course, we have longed for that area that if we invest in it, then the buildings will come, and it's starting to get there. So I would support that. I also would highly support the 3 Mile Lane area one, because I think the Innovation Campus will hopefully unlock some higher paying jobs for us. So I see that as being a major benefit to our community. And then of course I would love to see our sidewalks, because I've walked some of those sidewalks and they are a little scary in spots. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Chenoweth? I am.
I saw that when I asked my question regarding the lottery dollars, the pin was writing. So I would like that to be kept in mind for one of these 4 projects that are highlighted as a potential way to get some funds directed. And beyond that, it's ironic that I pushed for this to be brought to the council so we could weigh in, and I'm just going to say I agree with you. So.
Counselor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. I definitely agree with the list. I think that probably paring down the list in terms of what we prioritize in the short session makes the most sense. So my recommendation in terms of paring down would be to focus on projects that are not general fund projects, just because of the situation that the state's in with regard to the budget. They're making cuts of 1 to 5% across all agencies. And then secondarily, to try and look at places where there may be unallocated ARPA or allocated but unspent ARPA dollars that might be available sometime shortly before the session. I think it's really important that on that short list we add in, at least to start the conversation on the recreational infrastructure. But generally speaking, I think that the best opportunity for money is going to be projects that support in some way housing, affordable housing legislatively. So those are my thoughts. Thank you. And thank you for your work. Counselor
Gary?
Thank you. I'm going to change gears and disagree with the list that's presented of recommendations, and I'll list the ones I think would be more important, and I'll list my reasons why, and then maybe a couple comments and statements. But and I'm sure some of this will come as no surprise. But I think priorities would be the Parks and Rec facility, Phase 1 and 2, as you have listed. I have some questions as to why phasing out. I understand how you talked about it, but the other projects that I've seen around the state that have got funding, I don't think they've phased them, and they've gotten more than $1 to $3 million. I think Booth Bend Road should be a high priority. I think the LMI neighborhood sidewalks, and I think Third Street Improvement Phase E, those would be my priority projects, and I have it listed that way because I think the money we're going for, the pool of money we're going for, is state money, taxpayer money that we're trying to get to come back here. And I think the goal of that money should be projects that ease the taxpayer's burden as best as possible. I see a lot of the things that we're pushing forward. I understand their economic impact and the importance, but I also see those biasing towards private development than public good. And so the projects I've highlighted, I think, better ease the taxpayer burden by bringing money back into the community. And I also think I know we didn't go through the scoring matrix that you have at first, but I disagree with a lot of how that's done. I think you weighed some of those projects against the MacTown 2032 priorities, the Economic Vitality Leadership Council strategic goals, and then another goals one at the end. But there also is the City Council goals of 25, 26 that I think this new current administration has had the most ability to impact and reflect their current priorities. And while there are projects in that list as written aren't necessarily things you'd lobby for, like planning work plan, I do think that that's probably the best current snapshot on what this council's priorities are. So to me, some of those projects fit better into that rubric, and I think the scoring is sort of inaccurate in how the current projects were scored through that rubric. So that's my priority list. So there you go.
Thank you. Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Could you actually go back to the previous slide, please? And respectfully, I disagree with almost everything that Councilor Geary just stated. I do think that the Alpine areas should be a priority. Innovation campus area, highway frontage needs to be created first so that we can actually create a new area down there and all the jobs that go with it. I think that's important. Neighborhood sidewalks they're actually just kind of a disaster in some areas of the city if they even exist. So some areas don't even have a street, let alone a sidewalk. And how do we expect any kind of equity for our citizens if some people have a walking path and others don't even have a sidewalk? So I would like to see that prioritized. So I think that the list of priorities that you have here fit with what I see as our priority. So thank you.
So it's down to me. So I did advocate this past year for the Alpine, which was well received. Unfortunately, it didn't move forward, but it had gotten a lot of attention. So, and I do believe that we do need Alpine to complete the RB Rubber project and open up housing as well as the businesses that are in that area and move traffic off of 8th Street. So I support that. And the other ones, I support all of those, but I also want to agree with Councilor Geary that I would like to, I think after November, we kind of know where we're at, whether we have a bond to move forward or look at where we're going to go for a rec and aquatic center. And once that goes, then we're going to need to determine how we're going to ask for funds or what process we're going to go through. So I would like to make that a priority once November is passed. And I understand we're going to need to figure out what that is. We're going to need to understand what the value is and then determine where that fits in and ask with our representatives. But I want to make sure that we do go back and look at that. And I would ask that if Councilor Geary would like to have some discussion on a different way to look at this, that we are able to listen to you or have Jody listen to some of your suggestions. Okay?
I'd
Are we
appreciate
open to that?
That's great.
All right. Any other final comments? Councilor Chenoweth?
Sorry, I shouldn't have moved the mic with the mic on. The one thing I would comment on is there's different ways to look at easing the burden for our community. And one of the ways you ease the tax burden for our community is you increase the property tax rolls. And by so doing, you're bringing more money into the general fund, which allows us to take pressure off in other areas. And another way you decrease the tax burden on our society, on our citizens, is you provide them with jobs that gives them higher pay, so that a lesser portion of their disposable income is going, or they have more available disposable income to spend. So I would just be cautious that as we're having that conversation, we keep that in mind, that some of these projects are helping our taxpayers very strongly, but in different ways. Thank you.
And I Thank you for that. I think we all agree with that. There's different ways, and so it's just keeping in mind what our representatives have in mind to spend the money on. So it could be the list of items there, but it could be funding to put something in a rec center. So sometimes it's not for the infrastructure. So it's just making sure that we have the information, so when it's ready for the ask, we have the information. And I think that meets everybody's requirements up here.
So-
Anything else from us, Jody?
So, Mayor, I know that we just have about 5 minutes, so you have a 5-minute break before the regular session. And I didn't know, City Manager, if this was the time when the staff would receive guidance on how the legislative updates, the format in which the council would like to receive that, or if that's a later discussion. We are seeking guidance on that. And then I just wanted to share with you, tomorrow we'll be coordinating with these projects. So I wasn't sure about the legislative update.
Interim City Manager Adam Garvin.
Thank you. We do have the body here tonight, so if they would like to weigh in on how they'd like to receive updates, I'm good with that. If council leadership would like to have that discussion offline, I'm fine with that as well.
We have a few minutes to throw out some ideas, see if we can come to a consensus. Councilor Peralta, did you have an idea?
Yes. I'd be curious to know from the attorney's point of view. I think that we should make it clear that the group's not a deliberative decision-making body. And so the council obviously retains its authority to make decisions. So I think in terms of reporting, doesn't that require us to have to have the group report to staff and then staff report to the council?
Yes, Council President Peralta, that would be my advice to ensure that the, thank you, Mayor, to ensure that the advisory legislative group does not trigger requirements for public meetings for each of their gatherings. So it should come through a staff member.
So I think what Jody wants to know is how often do we want updates, and do we want them via email? Do we want them at a council meeting?
So again, I think as long as the report's coming through staff, then the staff can report to council, but the body reports to a staff member. Is that adequate? And then the timing.
Yeah, I think what staff's looking for tonight is how often you'd like those updates and in what format you'd like those updates. So if you'd like those at a department head report from myself or Heather or Jody, or if you'd like those in an email format that Claudia sends out, or it's included in a packet.
Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like at least a monthly update, and I'd like that to come from the city manager.
Councilor Chenoweth? So I think monthly, however, when we're in session, it may be a little bit more often as necessary. And the staff report will go to the city manager.
Okay, great.
Are we okay? All right. Are we done?
Thank you very
You're
much for your
welcome.
time. I appreciate it.
And adjourn the work session at 6:53. And community, we will be back at 7 o'clock to start the regular session. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. It's 7:01, and I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order. Scott, if you could please take a roll call.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Cunningham?
Here.
Councillor Tukalski?
Present.
Councillor Chenoweth?
Here.
Councillor Payne?
She's not on Zoom.
Councillor Geary?
Good evening.
Council President Peralta? Here. And Mayor Morris?
Here. Now, if you're able to stand, please stand for the pledge, and I will lead you tonight in the pledge. All right, so before we begin tonight, there is something that's been added to the agenda. There's been one change. We will be adding resolution number 2025-58 to the agenda as number 6, letter B. This will be reflected in the agenda that's online and posted tomorrow. Now, we have many people here tonight. We've had multiple letters. We've had multiple submissions for speaking. And I just want to make some comments before we start. Just remember, you have your ability to speak for 4 minutes. We have a total of 32 minutes. We're going to start with the people that have pre-registered to speak. And then we will go to the people that are in person. And then we'll go to Zoom, but only for that 32 minutes. I ask you to have your voice, tell us what you'd like to say, but please be respectful, and no vulgar language is allowed in this room. So just be respectful of your comments, but we're here to listen. So here is the official. Any interested audience member are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a land use decision that is or will be in front of the City Council, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Again, 4 minutes per person for a total of 32 minutes, and we will be, Scott Burke, our IT man, will be counting that for us. Once it's if you're on Zoom and it's your turn to speak, please raise your hand. Once it's your turn, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. Please announce your name and the city you live in, and we will put it for the recording. We will start with those who are pre-registered. Scott, who do we have signed up for public comment?
Mayor, first we have Stacy Mayhew.
Oh, Mayor.
Claudia?
Yes, before we start, I know you stated it briefly, but I do want to state for the record that we did receive 14 additional emails that were public comment emails that were sent to the council and will be made part of the amended packet posted tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Good to see you. Claudia is at a conference, so. Welcome, Stacy, and just one moment. We'll want to make sure Scott's ready to go. Go ahead.
My name is Stacy
You turn your mic on. Is it green?
There we go. Better. My name is Stacy Mayhew, and I have lived in Ward 1, McMinnville, Oregon, for 22 years. In those 22 years, I have never spoken to City Council about my ward councilor, and I have certainly never called for my ward councilor to resign. I am doing that tonight. On September 10th, national figure and host Charlie Kirk was brutally assassinated in the state of Utah. Charlie Kirk not only had millions of admirers and followers in the U.S., but all around the world. His assassination was a national tragedy. He was 31 years old, a husband, a father, a son, a brother, and a man who started his organization at 18 years of age because he wanted people to share ideas and have conversations. He was assassinated because his ideas and conversations offended some people. It is long past time for all Americans to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequences of demonizing those with whom you disagree.
Council President Sal Peralta has engaged in this rhetoric more than once on social media. He, on several occasions, has compared his constituents, like me, who disagree with his views, as Klansmen, hiding behind their white masks and keyboards. Mr. Peralta, I have never hid behind anyone or anything, and I do not intend to start now. The first time I am aware of comments you posted online regarding this was a post in June of 2025. The last time was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. When you were confronted by community members about your remarks, instead of apologizing, you doubled down on your reckless, inflammatory posts. Freedom of speech, sir, does not mean freedom from consequences, especially when you are an elected public servant who is charged with representing people of different walks of life and different political opinions. When you dehumanize people you disagree with politically, you can encourage those who might easily be swayed to commit violence. I am so concerned that you, Mr. Peralta, represent my family in Ward 1, but I am much more concerned that you represent all of McMinnville as the council president and that you step into the mayor's shoes when she is absent. Council President Peralta is the only council member who took the opportunity to meet tragedy with disrespect and disdain. We deserve better from an appointed leader. My family deserves better. I would like to see Mr. Peralta resign his position as county councilor, city councilor, and the counselor in the city of Cornelius, as the counselor in the city of Cornelius did after similar comments online. If not, I would like the council to elect a new council president who, like our mayor, has the willingness to encourage dialogue and the ability to bring people together to that healthy, rational middle ground where we find compromise, peace, and healing. Murder is not a political platform, and we should not be represented by people who glorify or make excuses for political assassinations and violence. We need sunlight. We need conversation and understanding. We need truth and facts. We need compassion and healing. However, there needs to be consequences for elected officials who willingly engage in inflammatory, divisive, and dangerous rhetoric. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
In this matter.
Scott, who do we have up next?
Next, we have Dana Gilbert on Zoom.
Hi, are you able to see me?
No.
No. Okay. My camera is on joint. Okay, here it goes.
Here we go. We can see you. Now we can't hear you, though.
Got it now.
Okay.
Dana Gilbert, McMinnville. I sent in a letter of support about protecting freedom of speech, which you can find in your packet. But I just want to say that the constitutional right of freedom of speech extends to elected officials who are speaking as private citizens. On Saturday night, Councillor Chenoweth spoke at a vigil for Charlie Kirk. Many constituents were offended by that act. Councillor Chair Peralta wrote about him as well. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with their statements. Their freedom of speech as private citizens is protected. Neither of them should be asked to resign because they spoke out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Larry Ryrich.
Welcome. Hi. Just pull the mic towards you if you could and make sure it's green. The light's green now. Is it red or green down below?
Okay.
There you
go. Okay.
Thank you.
Council and Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here to express my thoughts and concerns about the social media post posted by Council President Sal Peralta concerning the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I realize we all have our First Amendment right to free speech, but that does not mean freedom from consequences. While the First Amendment protects you from government punishment for your speech, it doesn't shield you from social and professional repercussions such as criticism, job loss, lawsuits, especially when your speech is offensive or harmful to others. I certainly don't want to infringe on your First Amendment rights. You have the right to say and comment Okay. You have the right to say what you want, but along with that right comes responsibility. There's a time to speak and a time to shut up. Your error in judgment was to make comments that are divisive and untruthful. As a council member and as president of the council, these kind of comments are not acceptable whatsoever. There's no place for that coming from a so-called leader. What have you gained or solved? Nothing. You have divided the community even more. The people in this community that didn't know you before now know you for sure. How unfortunate that is, and you will suffer the consequences. I'm not going to repeat the entire post, but I will comment on portions of it. Both in the first post and in your response post, you compare Charlie Kirk's speaking and his policies to the Klan. What a horrible and untrue comparison. This guy was just murdered on the college campus for speaking out on all the hate and division in his country, and you compare him to the Klan. Your comment, and I quote, "He has no relationship to the gospel-centered Bible, and his entire shtick is the opposite of Jesus' ministry." What Bible are you reading? Certainly it's not the same Bible that I have read for 60 years. I've listened to many of Charlie's podcasts and debates. You can't get any closer to the truth of the Bible with his words, comments, and teachings. And to say it's the opposite of Jesus' ministry, all I can say is wow. There is absolutely no truth in that statement whatsoever. If you think that what Charlie stands for and teaches is the opposite of Jesus' ministry, then I know exactly where you stand. That's not a good place to be, by the way. His words and debate answers are always grounded on the teachings of Jesus and all that he has to say on whatever subject is being discussed. His answers on all the high-profile topics, such as homosexuality, transgenderism, abortion, gender, and many more, are right on what the Bible has to say about those subjects. You can't deny that. It's black and white. There are only two genders. Mr. Peralta, I recommend that you take some reading comprehension lessons and maybe a good set of hearing aids so that what you take in is the solid truth and not the untruthful things you have posted. Another line in your comment, and I quote, "When you make a living out of shitting on groups of other people, every single day, don't be surprised when some of the hate comes back to you." Now, excuse the language, but I'm only directly quoting what Mr. Peralta said, posted. Mr. Peralta.
Thank you. You've run out of time. Thank you for your comments. Scott?
Next, we have Mandy Tatum.
Welcome.
My name is Mandy Tatum, and I live in McMinnville. Good evening, council, mayor, and neighbors. I want to speak tonight in support of Councilman Peralta's right to free speech. Whether people agree or disagree with what he said about Charlie Kirk, it's important to remember that he has the same constitutional protections as every American. The First Amendment doesn't only apply to some people, groups, or ideas. It doesn't just cover polite or popular opinions. It protects speech that some may find controversial or upsetting. One might argue that the most important tenet of free speech is the protection of speech that makes us uncomfortable and causes us to engage in discourse. Many of us live in echo chambers, particularly on social media. We surround ourselves with people who think like us and talk like us. It makes us comfortable. It validates us. It bolsters our self-esteem. We get cheered on by people liking what we said. But when someone breaks through our bubble and says something we dislike, instead of engaging them in dialogue, we get enraged. How dare they feel differently from us? They're wrong. They must be punished for not being the same. It's easier for us when our worlds are homogeneous, but that's not realistic, and it's not how a country as diverse as ours works. When a controversial public figure is assassinated, people will react in different ways. A response that differs from your own is not the same as celebration, and it doesn't erase anyone's right to speak on the matter. That right is at the core of our democracy. We don't get to dictate who or how another person mourns or how they respond to any significant event. We are all unique individuals with our own perspectives. We don't get to regulate people's emotions, beliefs, or speech, even if they are elected officials. Just because someone in your workplace or down the street or on social media, TV, or the government doesn't feel or display your personal sense of loss over a tragic death, that doesn't automatically mean they revel in it. The First Amendment ensures that we are free to express our opinions. Even as an elected official, Councilman Peralta is entitled to his opinion that differs from yours or mine. That's how democracy works. This is what our forefathers envisioned and enshrined. Ideas are thrust into the public sphere, and we discuss them, we debate them, we agree to disagree. This idea that if we don't agree with each other, we should cancel, silence, or punish people until they submit to our will is antithetical to the freedoms we espouse as Americans. Any official attempts to silence or punish the councilman for expressing his personal opinion sets a dangerous precedent for this council and our community as a whole. McMinnville is strongest when we handle our disagreements with thoughtful dialogue and understanding, not when we get out the torches and pitchforks. Protecting free speech means protecting it for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
Next, we have Terry Conlon.
Welcome, Terry.
This is off that topic. I just want to thank, first of all, I've never thanked the whole council, but thank you for volunteering. I think a lot of people don't realize that you're not being paid for this. And I want to thank the MacPac committee for all of their hard work in what they've done for the pool. It's not that I'm against the rec center, but I have a lot of questions. And transparency is the word of the day for me right now, especially after the last bond that voters sought to approve. So and I know that this is, you are not the deciding body on this, but I want it made known that I don't think one town hall meeting is sufficient to allow people enough time to ask questions and get answers. And I understand there's just one meeting. So my questions. There's not an architect rendering of this, so we don't have a concept of exactly what's included. There's no specifics that I've seen or read about the indoor and outdoor facility or about the components of the senior center, the library, and the parks. So the specifics are lacking, and we as voters aren't given details. And so I was thinking about that, and I thought, okay, so if you go to a restaurant, you order a meal, and you see $50 for dinner on the menu, and you ask the waiter, what's the meal for $50? And he says, trust me, you're gonna love it. That's how I feel about the pool, is that we've been held back and not told about what specifics are. If you haven't told people what to expect, and you start cutting things, they aren't gonna know that you cut it. So I think there needs to be more known up front about what's included in this so that you're transparent to the voters. The other thing is the $1.79. I appreciate your transparency about the $1.79. However, there's an 84-cent that's going to fall off. And when that 84 cents, I don't think a lot of people understand that. So that 84 cents is going to fall off, and then the city is probably going to come back and say, how about you fund the transportation some more? It's going to cost people more. Mr. Chenoweth mentioned how much it costs the citizens. The other thing is user fees at the Aquatic Center. Susan Muir quoted this last year, increase of $700 for a family pass, $357 for an adult pass. That's more than twice the cost of what those are now. So then you've got this hidden user fees that haven't come into play. She also stated that there was a $2.1 million deficit between operating costs and revenue. And now I understand that that's told to us now that it's zero, it's a flat, it's an equal. How could you go from losing 2.1 to nothing? That hasn't been explained to people. I think, again, transparency about this. I think what I'm asking for is expanded time at the town hall for people to answer questions and have time to ask the questions. And then the other thing is that this bond is only supposed to cost $218 a year. Actually, $1,000 from the time that we started with no fees, no bonds, now it's $1,000 a month more. I have the math to back me up. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have someone reach out to answer your questions. Scott?
Next, we have Andrew Holliday.
Welcome, Drew.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Andrew Holliday, and I am a resident of McMinnville. I am writing today to submit for the public record certain public posts made by Council President Sal Peralta. My goal is to initiate a discussion in which we, as a city, can better address and understand our differing viewpoints. Before the 2016 presidential election, the mainstream media began a troubling practice of using hyperbolic rhetoric and metaphorical dog whistling to stir fear and further divide us. Using terms like Nazi, fascist, the new Hitler, a felon, have commonly been used to describe our duly elected president. Likewise, RFK Jr. has been labeled a conspiracy theorist and anti-vaxxer, while people like Charlie Kirk have been called white nationalists, radical Christian speakers, homophobic, transphobic, among other things. All of these labels are factually inaccurate, and a small amount of non-biased research would reveal the truth, rather than simply consuming media clips on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and X. I would like to respectfully remind Council President Peralta that he is a nonpartisan elected official. You were selected to serve in a leadership role that impacts our entire community. Drawing comparison between Kirk's religious beliefs and the Ku Klux Klan is both disingenuous and unfounded. Similarly, liking anonymous respondents to your comments to Klan members hiding behind their hoods is absurd. I urge Council President to reflect on his rhetoric and recognize that this contributes to the us versus them mentality. If one wishes to engage in this divisive game, they should consider running for federal office. Such tactics have no place in city and county governance. The tragic events of September 10th were horrific, period. No further qualifiers or explanations needed. Murder is evil, no matter who the victim is, and no one should die for speaking their ideas. A 31-year-old man, father of two, publicly assassinated, seen by millions within minutes. The dismissive attitude toward these events, as if they were merely results of reaping what you sow, is deeply disturbing. At first, President Peralta's actions left me feeling angry and disappointed as a member of this community. I do not believe these comments reflect the values of our entire community. As Council President, he took an oath to represent and serve all members of this city. I believe he has fallen short of that responsibility. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Drew. Scott?
Next, we have Ames Byerly.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Ames Beerley. I am a resident of McMinnville. I'm speaking today in support of Council President Sal Peralta in the face of calls for his resignation. Sal Peralta is one of the most considerate and measured people I have ever known. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for almost 20 years, and he has consistently shown a great depth of caring and compassion for McMinnville and the people here. Sal doesn't just want the people who agree with him to succeed. He shows every day through his actions that he wants everyone here to succeed and live well together. I've seen Sal disagree with people, and I've also had disagreements with him, and even when faced with frustrations, he always has taken the time to listen and respond with respect. I've also seen him vociferously defend marginalized people, such as people of color, immigrants, transgender people like me, and others who have been targeted with violent rhetoric and physical violence. He has the First Amendment right to do so. The outrage against Sal on various Facebook groups this past week has been misguided at best and disingenuous and malicious at worst. We have better things to do with our time than to target a man who deeply loves this community and works every day to give a voice to the struggles of everyone here, including the people who are targeting him. I believe that the support for Sal outweighs his detractors, and I'm proud to be among his supporters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Linda Hayes.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm just going to say ditto what Ames said. I've had the same experience with Sal over the years. I've always admired the people in McMinnville for the hard work they do to keep this community on track together. People of different religious and political ideologies working shoulder to shoulder in soup kitchens, on fundraisers, on boards, and in elected positions. It's been painful to watch some of that deteriorate over the last decade. People getting caught up in divisive natural rhetoric on both sides of the conversation. I've always admired Sal Peralta for standing for what he believes in. Often I don't agree with him, and I still enjoy those discussions. There are very few people that have served in this community that I respect more. I'm not actually here in support of Sal. He is a public servant who will sleep well regardless of the outcomes, knowing that he has continually had the courage to speak up for those with less power and privilege than he has. I am here in support of our community, a community that thrives when its citizens are encouraged to serve in their public offices without fear of retribution to their reputation, safety, or livelihood for speaking their truths. We don't have to agree, but a call for persecution of anyone for expressing their beliefs, whether it is about their God or a television celebrity, threatens not only our First Amendment rights, but our ability to recruit the best, brightest, and most thoughtful leaders of our future. I honestly don't know how any of you do it. I am impressed beyond measure by every one of you willing to stand in the fire to volunteer hours of your life every week to serve and shape our community. Thank you. The work I could do, the constant criticism, even bullying that I have seen many endure, I am far too thin-skinned for. It is none of my business whose God you serve, who you take to bed with you, or your opinion of anyone who doesn't actually participate in the workings of our small city. Your job is to do your homework, present ethically without agenda, represent in good faith the best interests of your constituency, and get your work done. Our civil servants should have extra richness in their lives, not extra fear, and none of you should have to wear a muzzle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Todd Butterfield.
Welcome.
Thank you. Last time I forgot to say my city and my name, so Todd Butterfield, Ward 2, McMinnville, Oregon. Free speech is protected, no disagreement. But when does it cross the line and call for accountability for those who represent us in government? Dear City Council, Mayor Kim, and those who serve the city, thank you for serving. Appreciate it. When in the course of human events an appointed, not elected City Council member, at least according to the city website, makes such statement that seems to classify constituents and others in the city of McMinnville as equivalent to the anti-Republican organization known as Ku Klux Klan, according to Cambridge.org. Because those citizens have expressed approval of the work and statements of Christian activist Charlie Kirk, the statement must be redressed. The KKK was guilty of racial terror while Charlie Kirk sought to dialogue with any naysayers and show them the love and path of Jesus. Contrary to the statement of a certain city councilor, I don't believe that the now deceased by assassination Mr. Kirk had a shtick, nor was his work antithetical to the gospel of Christianity. He expressed his biblical views while always respecting, even in a spirit of love, the person to whom he addressed, even if they differed in their worldview. I have that same kind of love for all of you, including you, sir. If a counselor says with inflammatory tone and escalating phrases such as pooping on groups of other people, paraphrase, or don't be surprised when some of the hate comes back to you, not only do they dramatically and concerningly misrepresent their accused, they risk the perception of endorsing retaliation. His tone and approach does not fit the city of McMinnville in any form. I believe the better nature of a counselor should always draw people together rather than polarize. And I'd be glad to meet with that counselor to discuss it. That person should work to de-escalate rather than marginalize, using examples rather than deceptive hyperbole. What should be done? An apology, a correction, or a resignation, or at least potentially consideration of being stripped of committee assignments and title as council president. McMinnville can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott?
Next, we have Ryan Peterson.
Welcome.
Ryan Peterson. I live in McMinnville and have for quite some time. I want to speak in support of Sal. There are many here who are calling for him to step down, but I wish for the opposite. He shared a candid and nuanced opinion about a man's death. He did not celebrate said death, and he did not lie about the man's life. And no one is owed a eulogy, and so it is honestly an absurd spectacle that we're even having this controversy here. I'm not interested in politicians that pander and hide from controversy. I want representatives that have strong moral principles that they can stand to with moral clarity. And nothing Sal has said breaches even polite disagreement. It's not some great wrong to not feign sadness at a man's death. There are real problems, and we're arguing about a milquetoast Facebook post. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The last one we have tonight is Richard Smith.
Welcome.
I'm Richard Smith. I'm from here in McMinnville. I've lived here for most of my life. My comments today are also about Sal Peralta. I just wanted to come out tonight to talk about someone who is an exemplar of leadership in our community, and that is Sal Peralta. Sal Peralta is someone who I felt appreciation for a long time, and tonight I wanted to take the opportunity with everything going on just to speak out and show that appreciation. Sal has proven that he is willing to stand up for the most vulnerable members of this community, to go out of his way to work as much time as possible when you are already volunteering your time to serve and protect them, and he has proven that he deserves his position as council president. Sal Peralta is a constant professional. It is leadership like this that makes the community stronger. It makes McMinnville a wonderful place to live. McMinnville is lucky to have Sal Peralta. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's our time for tonight?
That's our time for tonight.
Okay, thank you so much. Sal, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Mayor. It's not our norm to respond to community comments, but thank you, Mayor. So I just would like to apologize to my colleagues and to the community for the insensitive comment that I made on social media. I see the hurt and frustration from people who are feeling hurt and frustration, and I regret that happened when the comment was amplified. To those of you who came tonight to share your views, thank you. This is the right place to express your concerns to your elected officials. While the comments in question were made in my capacity as a private citizen and not part of any city business, I understand that words can be amplified and may carry weight when spoken by someone in public office. For that reason, I will make myself available at a future date in an appropriate forum if people would like to have that conversation with an open heart, and I welcome that, but tonight is not the place for me to engage in that debate, but I am happy to have that dialogue with people who choose to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have received many letters, both sides of this issue, in support and not in support. And that's you did, again, you did the right thing. You voiced your opinion to us, and we read them. Not all of them are in the packet. Some came individually. But I wanted to address some of the ongoing requests or concerns. And I just thought it would be better to share the facts so the people that have sent in information understand where the council sits. So again, comments. So Council Peralta's comments are his own comments. They're not the comments of the council as a body. The city nor the council by the charter cannot take disciplinary action against an elected official for statements that are protected under his First Amendment right, even if they're controversial or divisive to some. While employees of the city must follow personnel policies that the organization can enforce, elected officials are not employees. So his comments were protected under the First Amendment. On the issue of him as council president, under Section 19 of the McMinnville City Charter, the council elects a council president at its first meeting of each odd-numbered year. The person elected serves in that role for the full 2-year biennium unless the charter is amended or the president resigns or vacates their seat. The charter does not provide for a midterm reorganization or a new election under other circumstances. Our city attorney, before he left on family leave, confirmed the interpretation of that charter. The broader discussion around accountability and conduct, elected officials, including Councilor Peralta, are accountable to you, the voters. The voters are the ones that elect him, and those are the ones that can not elect him next time if they so choose. This topic is not new to McMinnville. It has come up before. We've talked about it at goal settings as to whether there is an actual code of conduct for the council. And at each discussion, it's not been something that the council wants to actually come up with. We've not taken it any further, so there is no actual code of conduct for the council, except for as an understanding that we can all do better and should do better. There was also a question of whether Sal was appointed or elected. Let me clear that up for you as well. Sal was appointed at first, and then he was elected. It is true he was appointed in 2018 at the same time he ran a successful contested race for his ward seat in November of 18 and November of 22 for a successful re-election. In closing, I recognize that this may not be the response that everybody in the room was hoping for, but it is important that we, the council, uphold both the city charter and the constitutional rights of all individuals, whether their views are widely supported or strongly opposed. That is the responsibility of this office and the government and the people you elected. I appreciate Councilor Peralta's apology, and I would like that just as a community, we understand that we're better when we work together and that we are all careful of the words that we say. Does any counselor need any clarification on their role as a counselor? Or on the charter? No, you cannot. I'm sorry, public comment is done. Thank you. Any comments? I need you to sit down or you can exit. Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, you can, Chief Wood, could you please escort him out of the building? We gave the opportunity, you're welcome to send in an email to us. Again, we give you all the opportunities, and tonight this was done. All right, we're going to move on to reports of counselors on our committees. And we are going to start with Counselor Cunningham.
All right. The only committee meeting that I had was for MCM 11. Couple new updates for some new shows that they have that are coming online. Also, the Saturday Film Festival, their Mabel 23 is wrapping up. It's a mockumentary, and that will be available for the Short Film Fest that we'll be having later this year. And they are also supporting the Crown of Yamhill County Partnerships. That's the Henderson House's fundraising attempt at doing something similar to The Biggest Turkey is how I could put that, so that we used to have. And then they did have a little bit of a change in the bookkeeper, which they have a good direction that they're headed in. And I believe, oh, and further conversation on developing their sponsorship program.
Thank you. Counselor Chenoweth?
I forgot my bag of goodies.
Your Freeland Wades?
Yes, just realizing that. First, I'd like to say thank you for your comments, Sal. September 10th, I did a tour of Parker Megget, along with the mayor and several other members of the community. That was quite a lot of fun. Probably my favorite part of that, we went from the beginning of making seals, not seals like in the sea creatures, but seals like for planes. We went from the beginning of the process to the end of that process, and probably my favorite part was they had this robotic arm that cut the door seals all on their own, and it was really cool to watch. Parker Megget, if you don't know, is responsible for, I think they have just shy of 100,000 acres, or not acres, 100,000 square feet of manufacturing facility, and are responsible for right around 300 employees in our community. On September 10th, I attended the EVLC meeting. Heather Richards presented us with an annual housing data, including permits pulled by year from 2000 forward, permits pulled by decade, and cost burden analysis between McMinnville and other cities. Counselors, if you are interested, I'm sure that Heather would be happy to send you the slide deck. There is some really good information in that. It was data intensive as usual and very informative. And the benefit of getting the slide deck is you just get the deck, you don't get the whole presentation with it. September 13th was the design workshop here at the city of, here in this building for the Southwest Area Plan. There will be another opportunity for community residents to come and participate and be a part of that. I'd strongly urge that you do so. Your opinion matters. We want to hear from you. Please make it. I don't know the date of that yet, but there will be one more opportunity at least for the public to weigh in on the Southwest Area Plan. September 18th I was a participant to the Parkway Committee. We are all waiting with bated breath to see the fate of the transportation bill, as well as finding out what that will mean for the bypass. Phase 2A, if you have gone to the end of the bypass toward Newburgh, you see some big old mounds of dirt being built. It is well underway, estimated to be completed in summer of 2027. If you go out, you can actually search this on the website for Phase 2A of the bypass, and you can get the whole list of what's going to happen at that intersection. I'm not going to bore you with it, but a bunch is happening there. There was also much discussion of what's going to happen at McDougal intersection. Some funds are set to expire soon, if not spent, and the discussion revolved around using those funds in a way that will complement the end goal with minimal waste of leveraging the expiration to get the whole intersection funded. Ballpark for the whole intersection is 21 to 25 million. And I missed Freeland Wade in these notes. On the 20th, I also went to Freeland Wade, I believe it was. No, 17th, I went to Freeland Wade, did a tour of Freeland Wade with the mayor, and the city manager, interim city manager, and several others, where we learned about the process that they go through to make all of the tubing that they make. And I think the coolest thing there is they do this intertwined stuff around the outside of some of their tubing, and that's all done by machine work. No hands involved in this intertwining. It was kind of mesmerizing to watch. Let's see, have I gotten everything? I won't talk much about it. I'll let you do it, Mayor, but of course on September 20th, I was here for the celebration of life for Kent Taylor.
Councilor Peralta.
Thank you, Mayor. Council of Governments met for its quarterly meeting. The organization experienced a shortfall of $267,000 from a loss of federal grants that have been canceled or were not paid. They are also winding down major work related to the redevelopment of the Santiam Canyon. So they're going to have they're kind of working to make additional cuts to right-size the organization. They have postponed the legislative gathering that they had planned for October, so if you'd put that on your calendar, we want to take that off. I met as well in the last week with a representative from Edible Landscapes of Yamhill County. They operate in 3 cities countywide. According to their website, they've installed 27 garden beds, 50 fruit trees, 100 berry bushes, and have served 429 children and 249 adults in 2024. And they were coming with an ask for the city for any underutilized properties that they might be able to use to do edible landscapes for a season in the upcoming year. I suggested that they speak to staff, but I did mention Village Mill Park as a possibility, which is the undeveloped park on Rummel in the southeast part of town, and suggested that they contact Jenny Berg for that. And that is my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome. So my report for the last couple weeks, I met with my monthly meeting with Commissioner Johnston, which is always a good hour to spend to reflect on what's happening between the city and the county. Attended a monthly Economic Alliance meeting where we talk about ways, there's a group that comes together, what can we do to better not just our cities but our county economically. I met with Fire Chief Reed Godfrey to talk about Station 15, met with Linfield President Mark Blegion and Vice President of Advancement Joseph Hunter about strengthening our relationships and how to work together with Linfield College or Linfield University. Got to get used to that. Did a guest interview with Representative Elmer on her legislative podcast. There were 2 McMinnville maid tours, which Councilor Chenoweth already told you about, Parker Meggett and Freeland Wade. I think everybody, it would be really good to be able to share those tours with the entire community to know what is made here locally. There are a lot of amazing things. I was able to be a guest speaker at McMinnville Kiwanis last week, and one thing to note is they have a fundraiser this Saturday. You get to wear your fun shoes because they buy shoes for kids. Events, attended Young Life's Fall into Flannel event, Yamhill County History Museum Harvest Nights event, attended the ribbon cutting of Hagen Hamilton. They did a remodel and did a fantastic job there. And I had the honor of being a co-master of ceremonies for Kent Taylor's memorial service on Saturday here, which hosted over 100 people, including a lot of our past officials. And it was an amazing event that went very well. So I was honored to be able to be a part of that. And I am going to move on to Councilor Geary.
Thank you. The main update I have is from Visit McMinnville. The first and always most exciting is from Data Steve, who gave an outlook on the market. Highlights from that outlook are the U.S. market, Fed cut is potentially coming, and hopefully consumer sentiment is and will improve. Troubling that potentially is national unemployment rate continues to rise, so that may see a cut into that, and the labor market is softening, and thus maybe the rates get cut. So we'll see how that plays out for our local visitor economy. In addition, Canadian visitors continue to decline, but the Willamette Valley is at about 61% occupancy, down 3.9% year over year at a $142 average daily rate, which is down 2.5% year over year. In addition, got to see a preview of their new website, and it was replete with a discussion on AI search results and how that works with the environment and how that stacks things up. And that helped me understand that I don't understand AI. Development activities that Visit McMinnville has been working on, I encourage you to go yet again, if you don't already go just about monthly, down the art alley. The Linfield addition to that mural has been completed and is quite lovely. Collaboration with the McMinnville Downtown Association and MV Advancements has happened. There's an event coming up on October 11th, Bike Park, as that's my bike in the back of the room there. I think I might join that. That sounds cool. McMinnville Day of Service in collaboration with a lot of organizations is picking up steam. I look forward to joining, but is the 18th. Linfield Latin Heritage Celebration, the 18th of October, and then the director's report. He met with the new management team over at the McMinnville Inn, which is that giant, massive sea of pavement over by Builder's First Source that has a giant hotel in there that you always forget about. Then Dan hosted, and the Visit McMinnville team and others hosted 8 journalists for a solid week, which included James Beard Award voters and wined them and dined them. And my favorite anecdote was that their favorite thing was the farmer's market. You'd think Dan had to peel them out of the farmer's market because they had to keep their schedule going. So we have a great farmer's market. And beer festival coming this December that will be primarily hosted downtown, but helped through the help of Visit McMinnville. I as well attended the Celebration of Life for Kent Taylor, and good job on putting that on and having the city host it. It was a lovely celebration for a lovely man, and I'm just glad I got to know him.
Thank you. Councilor Tukalski?
Thank you, Mayor. My commission has not met. My committee has not met. I have nothing catchy or positive to say.
Well, okay. And Councilor Payne is not online, so I'm going to go to staff. So James Lofton.
I never get to go first. I wasn't expecting that. Engineering has quite an update tonight. I did want to bring up that we do have an item on the consent agenda. It's the IGA with ODOT for the upcoming ADA project. I'll remind council that that one is for all the ADA ramps throughout town that are within ODOT right-of-way. It also includes some elements of the adopted active transportation concept plan, some bike lane striping, and those 7 rapid flashing beacon crossings we've talked about previously. Happy to answer any questions on that, but we're excited for that project to keep moving forward, as is ODOT. Yesterday, we finished paving or the striping on the finished pavement out at Cypress and Fellows project. So that project is complete. It's a great project. A lot of ADA ramps were improved to that corridor. The asphalt turned out great. We had fantastic rates and wonderful quality product from our contractor. So we completed that on time and within the approved budget. So if you have time, swing through that project. It turned out great. And then we also received today our 20-year warranty for the roof that we replaced on Building 50. So that is complete as well, and that one was also finished on time and under budget, or on budget. We are starting soon, I believe.
Mr. Lofton?
Yes.
What's Building 50?
Oh, it's one of the buildings out of the wastewater plant. I don't know exactly what the building is. It's Building 50.
What is it? Building 50 is what we call our return pump station. Basically, it has the WAS pumps, RAS pumps, and pumps a lot of recirculation of wastewater back into our basins to help the bugs treat everything thoroughly.
Well, I'm super excited it has a roof over it.
And it's a good roof with a warranty.
Perfect.
We have landscaping starting on we have a small landscaping project out by the Welcome to McMinnville sign over by the 3 Mile Lane Bridge. We're starting on that landscaping project next week. We had some consulting services that we're making good headway on. DEA is our consultant that we're using. They've finished up the preliminary draft study for the findings out on Southwest Old Sheridan Road, prompted by the recent fatality. To give a quick overview of that, it essentially has short-term, medium-term, and long-term findings. The short-term findings are things that we expect the city can be installing or working on in the very near future. Hopefully we can do that within our existing budget authority, and we won't have to have a long deliberated process to do that. These are elements that we can do right now to hopefully improve the safety of that area. Medium term, we expect that to take in the 2 to 5 year range because it'll have to be engineered and designed and budgeted for. And then long term, it'll be kind of dependent on development, how that moves forward. We expect that to be more than 5 years out. I do plan on bringing a presentation to council to kind of go over all this. Looks like we were planning on scheduling that for the 14th of next month.
Great.
Happy to go over questions that you may have at that time on that.
Great, thank you very much. Jenny Berg, Library Director and City Parks Director.
I love it when I can give my report with just wearing the one hat with the dual role. So the voters pamphlet has been posted online, and that's a place where people can go and read about the bond. In terms of anything at the city level, we're still waiting on the approval from the Secretary of State on the neutral language that is that we can use for website and other materials that are neutral in the information that they provide. I want to, a lot of people are very used to having this Parks and Rec guide mailed to them, and as a cost-saving measure this year, this guide was not mailed out to everyone. There was a postcard saying, you're not going to get the guide mailed, but that you are, there was a QR code. It is posted online, and we do have print copies at the community center, library, and senior center. So if you really want a print copy, please come and pick it up. We've had some people come to the library and say, oh, no, I don't need to take it. It gets mailed to me, and not anymore. And then it's been a while since I brought some stuff from the Library of Things, and I particularly wanted to bring recreation things so that I can continue to wear the single hat. One is a stadium seat that somebody, there's 2 of them, so you can, check out 2 at a time. If you're going to some sort of event with another person. And then a portable hammock for those last beautiful days of the summer or the warm weather. And then this super cool thing, which I thought was just a soccer ball until I read more about it and then brought it out. It's actually a slow motion soccer ball for people that are learning how to play soccer and want to get some more comfort with their foot skills. And you can actually, it's filled with sand. And so it doesn't roll like you'd expect it to roll, which allows for you to do a little bit more foot magic there. The one rule. Oh, it also says right on the ball, no heading, because it's filled with sand. So don't do the headers with this ball. Anyway, yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Perfect. Public Works Director, Jeff Hunsaker.
Actually, all of our updates tonight were engineering related, and thankfully we have a fantastic and very thorough city engineer, so I have no other comments.
Okay. Human Resources Director, Vicki Hedges.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to report tonight that we have 100% completion for our 2025 annual compliance training. It's great news. I've been working on the last couple of weeks preparing for open enrollment, which will begin on Monday and run through October 24th. So I've been working on communication for employees, updating our materials online, and making sure that that's ready to go for next week. And then also just ensuring that every employee has acknowledged receipt of the updated employee handbook this year. So,
thank you. Information Systems update. Megan, I will ask Scott. Scott Burke.
Thanks, Mayor. I have Megan Simmons with me here tonight. She's been here for 10 years. If you've ever been in the city for a day, she's probably fixed your computer. Yeah. Just proving that it takes 2 of us to replace Claudia to run a meeting. So Beyond that, recently we've been working with court and police on their ongoing software projects. We've been working on planning a Wi-Fi upgrade project around the city. And of course, as we're always doing, working on a lot of cybersecurity items in the background that we'll be glad to talk to you more in our next executive session someday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance Director Katie Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to actually start with Noelle's update, our communication manager, as she is not available to join us tonight. So from her, we saw about 30 community members roll up their sleeves during the Southwest Area Plan Community Design Workshop on September 13th. Community members provided input on how elements of the Southwest Area Plan might come together to make neighborhoods that meet the community's needs. Through the workshop activity, we heard a good mix of the following from community members. We need thoughtful placement of businesses so that they can be successful long-term. Aligning green space within or near commercial areas. There may be a need for additional arterial routes or congestion planning. And preservation of green spaces, addition of a greenway, and adding trails that allow people to connect with nature is desired. Noelle is working with the consultant team and Tom Schauer to put together an online version of the workshop and hopes to have that out by the end of this week or early next week for folks to participate in the planning process who weren't able to attend the workshop. So keep an eye out for an email from Noelle when that survey opens. So that's from her. My update, we have court clerk interviews. We'll be interviewing 7 candidates next week. So this is very exciting that this is finally moving forward. We'd love to be able to hire by November 1st. This, of course, everything has to fall into place with backgrounds and all of that, but we're hopeful. We're working with Tyler Software to acquire software called Municipal Justice, which is the court software. So things are moving forward. Our little group is getting together. We've identified the software that interfaces with Tyler. We have found a cooperative purchasing agreement that meets the Oregon State purchasing requirements and are looking at using that. We still have some references to check and things like that. So that we'll be able to bring that back to you within the next month or two. We should have that narrowed down and be able to move forward with the contract. The fiscal year 25 audit is underway. Some of you may see auditors on site. They began on Monday this week. So the year is closed. We have what's called a soft close until the audit is completed. In case there are any changes that have to happen, there could still be adjustments. But other than that, everything is done. The books are closed. We're very pleased to have been able to wrap that up. We've also started drafting an RFP for new auditors. So that will be coming your way. We hope to be to the point of award in February for that new RFP. So the audit committee will meet, of course, before then to go through scoring and things like that. So you'll hear more about that as we get that out. Just waiting on some legal reviews and getting that out to everyone. And then the final thing that we have going right now, as far as big projects go, is that we are designing the new budget book for next year. And I wanted to just put a bug in your ear. I know there was some talk at our last council meeting about how big the budget book is or has been and how cumbersome it was. So this is your chance. We're designing the new book. So if you have thoughts, ideas, and you want to either talk to Adam when you get a chance on your one-on-ones to, give a little nudge about you would like to see less detail, more detail, different kinds of detail, that kind of thing. Feel free. If you'd like to send an email to me, to Crystal, to both of us, feel free. We'd like to start solidifying that by November so that when we go live in January, we really know where we're heading rather than doing it at the end. So Crystal is focused on that project right now. With the auditors are here. She now has a couple months to really focus in on that budget book. And she's doing the new software, getting that launched and getting that budget book designed. So now's the time if you have comments, questions, desires, or if you even want to come sit with me, sit with Crystal and chat with us to look at the software, what it looks like, what would the new budget book look like. Love to chat with you as well. So that's what I have for finance and
Great.
court.
Thank you so much. Chief Wood.
Last week, the department received the notification from the Northwest Accreditation Alliance that the board had unanimously voted to reaccredit the McMinnville Police Department. So I believe this is our 6th reaccreditation under the Northwest Accreditation Alliance. So very pleased for that and for my staff who make that happen.
Good job. I'm not sure if our fill-in attorney has anything that he would like to say. Tyler Millette?
I do have nothing to report.
Interim City Manager Adam Garvin.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a busy few weeks, getting up to speed with some different community partners. The president of Linfield and I met, John Dietz and I met one-on-one, Fire Chief Godfrey and I met, as well as went on a tour. I attended Kent Taylor's service, which was very nice to hear some kind words about a great gentleman and the many years of leadership he provided. And other than that, it's just been a lot of meetings. Claudia and I are working on solidifying my cadence for one-on-ones with the ET and council, so you should see that at the start of next week. So you guys will have all that coming up on your calendar, and we can get into a normal routine on that. So appreciate the patience while I've been onboarding. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I don't see Heather online, so she must not have anything to report.
She jumped off after the work session.
Okay, all right. Do I have anything, anybody I missed? Nope. Okay, so we're going to go on to consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda tonight. It's Resolution 2025-52, a resolution authorizing the approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of McMinnville and the Oregon Department of Transportation for ADA curb ramp improvements along Oregon Highway 99W, Oregon Highway 18, and Oregon Highway 18 frontage road. The agreement number is 73000-000-39034. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Gary, a second from Councilor Cunningham. Any discussion? Councilor Gary?
Yeah, James has touched on it a little in his report, but just wanted to share my excitement for the development that happens in this. I was council liaison and participant in the active transportation plan that we're pulling some projects from. It's super exciting. As I referenced, I'm a bicyclist. Just to feel a little bit safer as we move on, always stuck with me from the active transportation plan. The stretch of road where Highway 99 separates and is the couplet is one of the top 10 most dangerous stretches of road in the state of Oregon for non-motorized traffic. So the improvements here will keep a lot of people safer. So this is good stuff we're doing. Thank you.
Great. Councilor Chenoweth?
I don't, what I'm going to say is going to be almost the opposite of Zach, Councilor Gary. I actually appreciate a lot of the changes that are going on this stretch of road. I'm very thankful for a lot of what's going to happen. I have grave concerns about the fact that we are closing parking on that stretch of road on one side of Adams and on one side of Baker. So we're going to lose a ton of parking down those two streets. I wish we could have done this in a way that hadn't resulted in that. On the other hand, in the whole, I think a lot of the things that are happening in this is good. So I will be voting in favor of the thing, even though I have grave concerns about the impact of taking away all of that parking. Thank you.
Any further discussion or comments? Scott?
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukalski?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
All right, the consent agenda is passed unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to resolution, to consider resolution number 2025-53, a resolution authorizing the lease of city-owned real property at the water reclamation facility to Creekside Valley Farms LLC pursuant to ORS 271.310. I'm going to call on Public Works Director Jeff Hunsaker.
Yeah, thank you. So adjacent to our water reclamation facility, we have a lot of additional property that is available for us in the future for additional treatment requirements or treatment capacity needs. The area, instead of us trying to maintain it, we lease it out to a local farmer who basically does the maintenance and keeps that property worked for us. We had an agreement that was for 5 years and could be extended for additional 1-year terms for an additional 5 years. We accidentally did not extend that agreement, even though the farmer has continued to work on it and has been paying the bills. So legally, we had to create a new lease agreement. We could have had about 3 more years, so we decided to go ahead and do a new 5-year agreement with 5 more additional years on it with that same farmer. If the council chooses to approve it, that's what we'll do. If it's denied, we will go back out and do a similar method what we did last time, putting it out for a bid to see which farmer would want to give us the highest value for the per acres. The farmer that we are using, Creekside Valley Farms, was the highest last time we did that. So just wanted to clarify that, and if there's any questions from the council, happy to answer them.
Councilor Chenoweth?
So is this what we would consider fair market price?
Yes, it was. The bid price was from about 7 years ago. It really hasn't changed for this type of land, and when we looked at it, the additional cost administratively to go out and do the bidding and everything like that, we didn't think was going to result in a significant increase in value, so we chose to go this route, but we can go the other route if council denies it.
Thank you.
Councilor Geary?
Yeah, and I shared this with staff, but I'll share it here too. I'm going to be opposing this for the awarding of this to Creekside Valley Farms due to their repeated long history of DEQ violations. I think it underscores how we should relook at our purchasing and contract awarding process to ensure we factor in things like DEQ violations or other business-related offenses, and take that into how we award or don't award contracts. So I plan on opposing it tonight on that fact.
Any other counselors want to ask questions? Do we have any information on what DEQ violations
I
were?
didn't, if I may, I didn't see anything in the packet about DEQ violations.
No, I've done my own looking into them prior as well, but just because someone asked. 2017, there was 24 DEQ violations for $55,000. 2018, there was 49 DEQ violations for $133,000. To note, there were an additional 103 violations that were not for charge in 2018. In 2019, their violations totaled about $80,000. Some monetary violations were appealed and changed in cost, but a lot of them are related to pesticides and errant use of pesticides or improper reporting, and then muddying of the process for DEQ to be able to view and establish and access property.
And just, yes, Zach did share that with us ahead of time, and we did do a little make sure research, and those DEQ violations did not happen on city property. They happened on other property that was controlled by Creekside Valley Farms, and it is our understanding from our tenant that the person that was responsible for those violations no longer is with the company.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other? Do I have a motion to accept resolution number 2025-53, a resolution authorizing the lease of city-owned real property at the water reclamation facility to Creekside Valley Farms LLC pursuant to ORS 271.310?
Yeah, so motion.
I have a motion from Counselor Tukalski, a second from Counselor Chenoweth. Any further discussion? Scott, can you take a roll call?
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukoski?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Nay.
Council President Peralta?
No.
The resolution passes by 3 in favor and 2 opposed.
All right, thank you. Okay, so get my pages straight here. So now we have 6B, consider resolution number 2025-58, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a settlement agreement with all parties submitting claims to disputed funds erroneously paid to Fackler Construction. You have a hard copy of the resolution in your hand because it didn't make it into the packet yet. It is in the amended packet. And I would like to call on City Manager Adam Garvin to present.
Thank you, Mayor. The resolution this evening is to address the two-party check issue from the Fackler Construction. Council, you've been briefed on this numerous times, but the long and the short of it is the remaining contractor, which is the excavation contractor that had the majority of that original 181 they were owed. They're going to take a little bit less money. Surety's going to chip in some money, and then the city's going to be out $7,500 to bring this resolution to a close and get the bank to release those funds. And this will put that issue to rest. The flooring contractor that was owed some money has already been paid out by a surety. Any questions?
Any questions from the dais? Okay, do I have a motion to accept resolution number 2025-58, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a settlement agreement with all parties submitting claims to disputed funds erroneously paid to Fackler Construction?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Counselor Chenoweth, a second from Counselor Tukalski. Any further discussion? Scott?
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukalski?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight and being respectful and voicing your concerns. And I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:19 p.m. Thank you.